Hello darlings, and welcome to the Bedroom Guru with me, Nicky Alan. This is the first in the series of the grief programme, and this is going to be covering the subject of denial and shock. Now, it's a really sometimes freaky place to be in, because most of you who've gone through the initial stages won't even remember a lot of what's happened after you've been told you've lost a loved one, especially if it's from a tragic or sudden death that you were never expecting. It's totally natural, it's totally normal, and I would think that every single time as a police officer that I told people that someone had passed over, the first thing that they would say out of their mouth was, no, it's not him, no, it's not her. Because your body and your mind and your emotions cannot begin to imagine not having a life with them. So straight away, fight or flight, and this adrenaline pumps through your system, the cortisol starts coming, telling you, no, you can't cope with this, so don't accept it. Just don't accept it. It hasn't happened, so don't worry, you're okay. And it's a perfectly biological, emotional way of literally, protecting yourself, looking after yourself, because you can't take on board this information. I'm just going to give you a few examples of when this has come into play. The first one that I actually saw was my introduction to it, to be honest with you. I was only a young copper. I was most probably about 19 years old at the time. And we'd had a call over the radio to say that this poor boy, it was just incredible. He was only 17 and he literally had just collapsed and died in front of the college, on the way to college. No underlying health issues, absolutely nothing, just literally dropped down and passed away. It was horrific. And we were tasked with trying to find the mum, and she was at work at the time. And so we tracked down where she worked, and most incredibly, the other thing you might get is a sixth sense, especially if you're spiritually orientated watching this channel. You may even have a feeling before you've even been told, or, that they've gone. And we literally walked into this office, which was an open plan office. Out of all of the people, the mum of the son stood up and said, "Don't you dare tell me my son's dead." And she trashed her office space. She, at the time, I think it was electric typewriter. That's how far we're going back. She just trashed the place and went ballistic. And it was like, Jesus Christ. She kind of knew. She had this sixth sense. She saw police officers standing in the doorway and she knew her son had gone. But then suddenly it flipped. And she goes, "No, it's not him. It's not him. No, not at all." So, tried to give her a cup of tea, lots of sugar because of the shock, and she sat there going, no. She goes, "You got it totally wrong. You're absolutely useless. How dare you put me through this? Because at the end of the day, I know that he's at college. You're just disgusting, you are." And she was really aggressive, not having it. Even when we got to the hospital and we took her in to see him, she said, "No, it's not my son. That's not him. You've got the wrong person." And she was absolutely adamant for a couple of days that, this was just someone that looked like her son, and she just wondered where he was and that he was late back home. She would not take it on board at all that was her son. Completely natural way of reacting. She just wouldn't have it. Another one that comes to mind, I'm just going to let them, naturally flick into my mind, in respect of shock and denial, was a lady whose son had died as well, and she would not accept that he was dead at all. And I think I've mentioned this on a video before. And that in those days, I doubt they'd let her do it now, God bless her heart, but in those days they let her just sit by the morgue, and she was knitting a jumper for him. And I went to see her because I've been round to the house and she weren't there. And I went to see her, and she goes, "Well, it must be so cold in there." She just was seeing him as being alive in a fridge, being refrigerated but still alive. So she goes, so I'm gonna knit him a jumper because he's gonna be cold, and no doubt I'd be moaning. And it was like totally. So for anybody that just walked in on that didn't understand grief or didn't understand the processes, would think, Jesus, she's lost the plot. But you totally get it. There's no way her son's dead. He's just cold in the fridge somewhere, and she needs to knit him a jumper, you know. And another one that really opened my eyes up was a man that had been shot. Horrific case. And I was a family liaison officer for the family, and obviously I was the first person in to go and see the family once they'd all gathered together, to tell them what had happened, and I was with them pretty much all day, every day. You know, the main role of a family liaison officer is not only to be there, you know, during their grief and to support them, but it's also to facilitate information from the incident office and likewise feed it back in. So I was with them, you know, pretty much all day and all night for the first week or so. And I remember I had a weekend off, and on the Monday I went round and knocked at the door, and the wife of the victim said, "Hi." I went, "Are you all right?" So I said, "Do you want to put the kettle on?" You know, trying to be a bit friendly. She's like, "Sorry, who are you?" And she didn't recognise me. I'd been with her for a whole week. And so the shock of the process of what had taken place had just completely numbed her and completely sent her into this defensive mode. And she didn't even remember or know who I was. She didn't have a clue. I had to explain the process again and explain it all over again while I was there, which was horrific because I had to go back to, you know, that he's passed, you know, that he's... And it was just really hard for me to contemplate having to tell her all of it all over again. But she just did not have a clue, you know. So this is how it works. It is a defense mechanism for your body, an emotional process to ease into the fact that you are no longer going to see your loved one. This particularly most probably is for more traumatic passings, and I'm certainly not saying that anything is more traumatic than others, but you know, this is kind of like if you've lost someone that you had no expectation of whatsoever, you know, young people or people that weren't ill. Obviously you're still going to get denial and shock, you know, even when you are grieving someone that perhaps was ill or very old and you knew they were going to pass at some point, because what will happen is that you'll think, oh, I must phone mum, and then suddenly you'll get a bolt of adrenaline and think, Jesus God, she's not here, you know. And so it's just literally, you don't want to accept their passing. It is totally natural. Let it take place and let it just be. Whatever defense mechanisms need to come in, just let it be, okay? If anybody, and this is a problem I've noticed, the dynamics of family, because your family members and your friends will grieve at different stages to you and will cope differently. So they could get over the denial process within an hour, okay? They could get over the denial process within a month. It depends. You know, if you start stretching out over a month and you're still in denial, then there's an issue there that perhaps needs to be dealt with. There's no textbook time on grieving. What I will say is, though, is that, you know, if you're still in denial after that amount of time, you naturally need to go through the next processes to get to a place of acceptance. And so you may need help, you know, with a counsellor, bereavement counsellor. If you're still stuck in this denial process, you need to naturally move forward. Okay, and it's not that, you know, you need to go through this pain and agony, but there is a natural process that's been identified that you need to go through. Okay, so only you know when perhaps it's got to a stage when there's interventions with family. However, I've seen families splinter apart or get even closer through death. And it depends on how your family cope and how well you were glued together in the first place. So if someone is trying to shake you out of it in the first couple of days, that is not a good process. So you need to own your truth, even if you're not feeling great or not knowing what's going on and you're totally lost and everything's chaos. You want the world to stop because you can't even cope with getting up. You just can't do it. Okay, you need to perhaps express that. Just back off and leave me alone. I need to find someone that's a natural mediator in your friend's family that could do this for you. Can you just tell them, I don't care at the moment. I can't deal with this. Tell them to just back off. Okay, everybody's got to honour each other's processes in respect of grieving, and so it's really important for you to try and speak your truth if you've got that in your mind. If not, the chaos will just entail until you get to a stage of popping out and thinking, my God, he's really passed, she's really passed. So remember, this is your defence mechanism to try and get your body closed down enough to process what's actually happened, and then we lead to the next stage. Okay. It's a really difficult place to be in. It's horrific because, you know, even though, you know, the model, if you like, says about feeling the pain in the second stage, I think you get it in the denial stage where, you know, perhaps the following day you think, no, of course he's not dead, really, it's just a sick joke, and then suddenly you get this bolt of pain that absolutely rips your heart apart, and you think, oh my God, no, he really is dead, I need to accept that, and then you go, bang, no, he's not, no, he's not, no, he's still here, this is not happening to me, you know. So I think the pain does start almost immediately. It did for me during all the times that I've experienced loss, and I've had a lot. I've only got an uncle, auntie and cousins left, that's it, they're all gone. So, not gone, you know, they've just moved up to that glorious place. But that's the kind of process you're going to be going through to begin with. You're not going to have it, you don't want to accept it, and as I say, it can be an hour to a month, whatever time it takes for you to process that loss. So please don't beat yourself up, please don't think you're going mad, please don't you know, if some people want to carry on talking to them as if they're normal, they bark at people if they talk about them in the past tense. That's fine. The other people have got to honour that and know that. And so perhaps this is going to help you if you're dealing with someone who's grieving. Okay, if they're in denial for a little while, let them be. It's just their way of processing the reality of the fact that they're never going to see their loved one in the physical again. Okay, so if you're the person dealing with that person that's grieving, honour the fact that they need just a bit of space to get this in their head that they've actually lost that person. Okay, but likewise, if you know this person really well and they are someone that's, you know, carrying on some sort of ritual, keeping them alive for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then perhaps there's an intervention needed. Only you'll be the guide of that because you know the person. Okay. So that's the first stages really of denial and shock. Shock is amazing. Shock can, you know, you can do things like sleepwalking. You can just go through the motions of the day, not even remember it, know it, experience it. You are just closed down and just literally walk around like a robot, like a zombie. And so again, it needs to be honoured. You need, you know, if you're looking after someone that's going through that, you just need to take one day at a time, be kind to them, keep them as relaxed as possible, don't expose them to any other stress, and allow them to just take this process on first of all. The acceptance, well, it's not even acceptance, the knowledge that, you know, they really have passed and they're not coming back in the physical. Notice I keep saying in the physical because they are there spiritually, but this is all about physical grieving. Okay, so that's the first stage, denial and shock. And the next stage is most probably one of the biggest ones, especially if you're a parent that's lost a child. The next stage we're going to be talking about in the next video will be pain and guilt. Could have, should have, would have, why didn't I? My goodness, that is huge. So I'll introduce you to that in the next video, okay? To those of you watching this who are going through the grieving stages at the moment, I wish you love and strength. Just hang on in there, take one day at a time and be kind to yourself. I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye now.